Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. You're probably wondering why we're dressed the way we are, and so I should probably explain that. I took on a friendly wager with the mayor of Guelph about the outcome of the first round of the playoff series between the Kitchener Rangers and the Guelph Storm. And as you may know, after the first 4 games, the Rangers have moved on to golf season, and we and the Storm is actually going out to play London, I believe, next, as Councillor Schneider has informed me. So as a result, I am dutifully wearing what I said I would wear, as much as it hurts, a Guelph Storm jersey tonight. But I want to thank the rest of Council who are wearing, in many cases, their Ranger jerseys or their other favorite hockey team of choice. And for those who don't know, Councillor Gazzola has been a long-time Montreal Canadiens fan, which he would argue probably they're few and far between in this region. Or is there a few of you around? Okay, so there's at least a Gazzola. So. It's been moved by Councillor Ioannidis that the minutes of the regular meeting held March 4th and the special meetings held March 4th and 18 as mailed to the mayor and councillors be accepted. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? There being none. And there's no communication to refer to file, so we'll now move on to presentations. And our first presentation will be from Jerry Van Oudegem, the President and CEO of Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro, and Jim Phillips, the Chair, to present the 2018 annual report. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of Council. Thanks once again for giving us time on your agenda to present our report for another very successful year for Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro. I bring greetings to you this evening from members of both boards, both Kitchener Power Corp, of which I have the privilege to chair, as well as our subsidiary, Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro. We are very proud of our award-winning staff and the essential services that they provide to our community. I'll turn the presentation over to our President and CEO, and once Jerry wraps up, I'll return with some good news for Council and the residents of Kitchener. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Worship, members of council, senior staff, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to once again present to you the annual report for Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro for 2018. Just a quick look at some statistics from last year. We added just over 1,000 new customers during the year, which equates to a growth rate of 1.4%. That's pretty much our average over the last 5 years. It's down a bit from the year before, but right where we've been for the most part. Our billed energy consumption, however, was up a fair bit, and that was mostly due to the hot summer that we had last year. Cooling degree days were up 79% last year. Our peak demand was also up from the previous year for the same reason, and it occurred in September last year for the third consecutive year, which is a real change from prior years. So interesting to note that change. In terms of financial performance, our total revenue for the year was $243.5 million. That was a decrease of 1.9%. That includes all costs, including the energy charges. 2018 was the first full year for the Fair Hydro Plan that came into effect that reduced residential rates by an average of 25%. So that's why our revenues were down a bit. Our distribution revenue, however, was up, and it was, again, because of the warmer weather we had last summer. Total expenditures for the year were $232.4 million, again, because of the lower energy costs because of the Fair Hydro Plan. That leaves a net income for us last year of $11.1 million. I would like to note that $1 million of that was due to a special one-time conservation demand management performance incentive that we achieved last year for hitting our midterm target, which is the 50% of our total savings that we were required to achieve over the 6-year period. So excluding that, it was $10.2 million last year and $10.1 million this year. In terms of capital investments for the year, our total was $20.3 million. That was below budget by $3.1 million, and it was entirely due to one project that didn't happen in 2018, and that is the replacement of our customer information system. We had budgeted $3 million for that project during the year, and that didn't happen in 2018, but we will be moving forward with that in 2019. The nice thing to note here is that the gray part of that bar, we're starting to spend more money in replacing our own plant, which is really where the focus has been now that the LRT project is done. In terms of, oh, this doesn't tell you much, does it? In terms of operating expense, I'm not sure why this version shows up this way. Our controllable costs for the year were $19.4 million, which was an increase from $17.9 million the year before. And that was planned. Again, our O&M costs were down because of the LRT work. We shift our resources to capital when that happens. Our CDM costs for the year were $3.7 million, which was up slightly by $150,000. Interest, property taxes, and amortization were $13.8 million. Income taxes, $1.9 million, for total operating expense of $38.8 million. Moving on then, our controllable costs I mentioned were $19.4 million. That equates to a cost of $201 per customer for the year. That is the lowest rate in the province. And just so you know on this chart, our number is for 2018 controllable costs. For everybody else, it's 2017, because that's the most recent information available from the Ontario Energy Board. So it took us a while to get there, but you know, quite an accomplishment, certainly on behalf of all of our staff. If I now look at our residential customer rates, our rates have actually decreased slightly from last year. It's a bit of an anomaly because there's a negative rate rider there. We collect from our customers for 100% of the bill, even though we only keep 20% of it to use ourselves. And there's always a variance between what we collect from our customers and what we pay to generators and the independent electricity system operator. That difference is either refunded or collected from our customers. And so there's a negative rate rider of $5.25 on this. But as again, you can't see on this slide, our distribution costs are $17.41 out of this bill, which represents only 18% of the total bill. So how does that position us relative to other utilities in the province? Again, we have the lowest residential rate in the province of Ontario at $95.36. Recognize there's a $5 adjustment in there, but even with that, we'd be second lowest in the province if that rate rider is not accounted for. So those are rates that are published on the OEB website as of March 1st. Moving on to reliability performance, the first metric, SAIDI, is the average length of an outage, and the next two are the frequency of outages. One is the average amongst all customers. MAFI is for momentary outages, so those that are less than a minute in duration. So customers on average would have been out for 41 minutes over the course of the year, would have seen one outage in terms of safety, so sustained outage over the course of the year, and 2.7 momentary outages over the course of the year. All improvements over the previous year, and certainly better than the provincial average, which you'd see in the middle there for our peers. Moving on to service quality performance metrics, you can see the Ontario Energy Board minimum standard there, sort of in the middle. The metrics, we exceeded the minimum requirements in all cases. In fact, maintained some significant improvements in telephone accessibility for 2 years running. That was a very concerted effort on our part. We slipped back a little bit on cable locates due to a temporary staffing issue just when construction season ramped up. But again, we expect that to do better this year. And the emergency response urban, there was only 17 of those events last year. And 2 of those events, we were like 65 minutes instead of 60 minutes responding to those calls. So just to put that in perspective. In terms of renewables and energy conservation, the dark green bar is the behind-the-meter generation, solar generation, basically, that over 900 of our customers have installed in our service area. And conservation is the light green bar. We had a tremendous year in 2017, but we pushed really hard to close those projects in 2017 to maximize our opportunity for an incentive. So there was a bit of a lag going into 2018 because we pushed to close those in 2017. Unfortunately, a week ago, the provincial government announced that local distribution companies will no longer be delivering conservation programs, effective essentially immediately. We've got some transitions to work with. They're eliminating a number of the programs, and the programs they're retaining, they're going to centralize in Toronto with the IESO. So we've kind of been cut out of the picture there. And I think it's unfortunate because our staff have done a tremendous job getting to know local businesses and customers and how we can help them become more efficient. So I think it's a short-term issue, quite frankly. I think once Pickering shuts down, they'll be back to say we need to ramp up savings. But for now, that's where we are. Just a little bit about Grand River Energy. It's an affiliate company, jointly owned by the 3 hydro distribution companies in Waterloo Region. We are a generation and renewable energy solutions company. We hired a full-time president in 2018. That started at the beginning of May. And he's been a very busy fellow since he started with us. We've acquired 3 rooftop solar projects, one in Cambridge, one in Kingston, and one in Vaughan, for a total capacity of over 1,300 kilowatts and an investment of $8.3 million. And we're also working on a combined CHP and geothermal project with Township of Woolwich at the Woolwich Memorial Centre in O'Mara. Just a couple final slides. Community initiatives. We continue to do the school safety programs. We sponsor a couple sponsorships at Conestoga College for the engineering programs there. We're still the title sponsor at Center in the Square, and we continue to provide tree reforestation grants to the city and the township, almost $2 million since 1990. And finally, a commitment to safety. We've had a good stretch here now where we've achieved over 1 million consecutive hours without a lost time injury. It takes us about 3.5 years to get there. And we were recognized with a couple of silver awards from Canada's Safest Employers for both our safety program and our wellness program. And you might have heard last week we had a couple other awards that were given to us at our association's annual awards gala for public electrical safety and for an LDC Excellence Award. And the LDC Excellence Award is really an all-encompassing award. They look at your occupational health and safety program, operational excellence, financial operations, retail strategies for conservation and management, and contribution to community. So those are the 5 evaluation areas, and only one utility wins that every year, and we were fortunate enough to win that thanks to the excellent work done by our staff. So certainly very proud of that accomplishment. So that really is the end of my presentation. I'm truly proud of the staff that work for us, the great job they do for you, the customers and the communities we serve, and certainly are available for questions. But before we do that, I have one other award, one award that I would like to present. If I could ask the mayor to come up. I mentioned this. This was probably will be the last year we're in the conservation business going forward, but I do want to recognize the City of Kitchener for an excellence award in energy conservation. So it's for the most conservation CDM applications of any business in our service area that we serve. There were 24 applications submitted by your staff for the energy conservation program that were approved, that together result in over 600,000 kilowatt hours saved. So the energy used by 70 homes in our community. So a remarkable achievement for 1 year. So I certainly want to congratulate you and the City of Kitchener and all your staff for the excellent work they did on energy conservation. So thank you very much. And I'd like to call on our chair now for a couple of presentations, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Jerry. I believe I mentioned the past couple of years that this probably is my favorite evening of the year serving on the KPC board. We have 2 checks to present to the City of Kitchener this evening. The first is from Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro, and it's a grant in the amount of $45,000 to go towards reforestation in the city. And we really enjoy being able to support that very worthwhile project. So that is the first check we'll have for you. And the second check, you of course are our major shareholder, and from the financial information that Jerry presented to you, the success of 2018 results in a dividend check payable to the City of Kitchener for $3,721,400. So I have these here with me this evening, and we'll present them.
Well, thank you very much to both of you for certainly that excellent presentation and success of the past year. Thank you very much for those 2 contributions, which I'm sure Mr. Lautenbach will put to good use in the corporate treasury. And last but not least, thanks for the acknowledgement. I think it's it's a great way to sort of kick off what I guess in many ways is Earth Month, and what will actually be a launch, or council will be considering later this month, our corporate sustainability plan as well. So the two kind of fit quite nicely together. So we do have some questions for you. Councillor Gazzola, you're up first.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your excellent report and another great year of stewardship for the shareholders who are citizens of the city of Kitchener. I did notice though that the dividend check is a little bit lower this year. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it's actually about $500,000 more than what we budgeted for in 2018. But the way the process works for us, we reset our rates only once every 4 or 5 years, and we haven't done that since 2014. So all of the assets that we've invested in and the plant that we've improved, cannot be added into our rate base so that we can earn a rate of return on that until we rebase, do a cost of service rebasing, and that we're in the process of doing now. So in 2020, we'll add all those assets back in the rate base.
I do want to compliment you on two items that you showed us. And the first one is the controllable cost, $201 per customer, I think it is. And you said that that's our 2018 figures, and the others were 2017. So
yeah,
it's going to really look even better than that.
Yeah, and the other thing that I didn't mention, but our transformer station costs are embedded in that $201 as well. And most other LDCs in the province don't own and operate their own transformer stations. So, there's close to another $20 embedded in that for those costs, which are unique to us.
Now, there was a chart that showed that we had the lowest customer rate. Is that for the province, or?
Yeah, lowest residential rate all utilities in the province. Yeah. Like I said, it's a bit artificial because we're refunding some money now, but even without the refund, we'd be the second lowest in the province.
So we're doing very well compared to our neighboring cities.
We're doing a bit better, yeah.
Well, my final question, I just want to ask you, today, as people from Ontario went to the gas station, we incur a new tax, or the carbon tax. Are there any implications for hydro with that? Or?
Not particularly, because we are, there's very little carbon produced anymore in the electricity system because, we've moved off coal a few years ago. So there's a little bit with natural gas generation when it's running, but the water and the nuclear are zero carbon emission generation sources. So there's not, we're on the lowest or the lowest jurisdiction in Canada for carbon emissions as far as electricity goes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just also want to just compliment and congratulate Kitchener Hydro and your continual performance. As an entity, you're nimble and yet very strong, and it's astounding to see year after year that the rates that Kitchener customers pay compared to everywhere else is the lowest in Ontario, and that's fantastic. And that speaks to the strength of your organization. And as directors of the corporation, we're always very happy to see the return that we get on our investment. But apart from all of that niceties, I think what's really exciting for me is the potential that the GRE has, and the forethought that you guys have had to set that up. Ultimately, in the long term, there's a lot of other avenues towards electricity generation that could have an impeding effect or value to your operations. But having something to safeguard and having something that's non-regulated at the same time could potentially build on as an investment return. That's great. One thing that was kind of cool to hear that you guys are getting into the solar panel business operations of things. The City of Kitchener has a lot of roofs. Hopefully that we can look at potential for synergies there where we can, rent out our roof structures to generate as an operating business for you guys as well, and where it could be a greater return to our city. So if you're not looking at that already, perhaps that would be a point of consideration to our staff and you guys. So thank you.
Certainly, we have had some conversations with your staff, and we would love to, make the municipality a leader in solar rooftop installations. I think it's a really good fit, for our unregulated company. We've got a really good running start, in 2018, and there's lots more opportunities for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, those are all the questions we have. Thank you. But I think what I will do is there is a motion under new business that Councillor Ioannidis was moving, and it pertains to the audited financial statements and the auditors. So, Councillor Ioannidis, do you want to move that?
Thank you, Mayor Verbanovic. Yes, we're happy to move this as Kitchener Power Corp. Whereas the Kitchener Power Corporation shareholders agreement requires the annual circulation of audited financial statements and the appointment of auditors for the ensuing fiscal year. Therefore, be resolved that the audited financial statements of Kitchener Power Corporation for the year ended December 31st, 2018, as audited by KPMG LLP, as presented, be hereby received, and be it finally resolved that KPMG LLP be hereby appointed auditors of Kitchener Power Corporation for the ensuing fiscal year, and directors are authorized to set their remuneration.
Okay. Who wants to second that? Councillor Schneider. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That too is carried. Okay, we'll now move on to the next item, which is really more delegations than presentations, and it's Mr. Mark Dineen. Mr. Dineen had approached me with respect to concerns from the autism community about issues in relating to their funding, and so I had agreed to put their motion on our agenda, and he's here to speak to it. And understand there's one other delegation as well. I'll remind delegations that they have 5 minutes to make their presentation. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start with a brief timeline of what's happened in the autism community under the leadership of the Ontario government this year. On February the 6th, Lisa MacLeod, who is the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, announced that there would be changes forthcoming in the Ontario Autism Program and gave some detail, but notably left some things out. She did mention there had been months of consultations, and I'll confirm that. I wasn't part of them, but a number of families that I'm close with were invited to attend and to comment. The main item was that the budgets for therapy services would be capped at a lifetime $140,000. Families like mine found that number a little bit alarming because we can spend that in 2 years with intense therapies that are required for some level 3 autistic children like mine. At the time, too, she mentioned that there would be income testing, but there were no details available, and that was several weeks coming from the ministry before there was any clarity. The other thing she didn't mention at the time was the annual caps, and these annual caps, I'm sure the councillors have seen in the news, number $20,000 a year for children up to 6 years of age, and then 7 to 18, $5,000 a year. Anyone who is involved or even familiar with therapy services for autistic children knows that these numbers are totally inadequate. The first protest regarding this was February 8th at MPP Amy Fee's constituency office in Kitchener, which I attended. We've been in the news with our protest movement since then. The largest protest at Queen's Park in 2019, which is also the largest autism protest in Ontario history, took place on March the 7th. And at that time, there's a video of us, or rather video of inside the chamber at Queen's Park where we can be heard chanting outside. On March 21st, Minister MacLeod announced enhancements to the program as a result of the backlash from the public. These enhancements included removing income testing from funding, as well as a 6-month extension for families like mine that were under service. That's certainly a welcome change, but I do want to point out that the 23,000 children who are on the wait list that Minister MacLeod frequently references during question period and in front of the press get no benefit whatsoever from this extension. If my child still needs IBI after this extension, this will quickly lead my family into bankruptcy. We're lucky enough to own our home in Kitchener, but we have already exhausted our retirement savings, and the prospect of having to sell our only home in order to facilitate therapy for our son is very unwelcoming. My wife, in response to this, left her career with the Catholic School Board in Kitchener to become a full-time therapist for our son. Families all over the province are facing these types of decisions. By and large, this is women, mothers, who are being driven out of their careers into a position of being a therapist at home, a position that they're not trained for. Just yesterday, a little over 1,000 people marched 22 kilometers from the Minister's constituency office in Barrhaven to Parliament Hill. This is the annual Autism on the Hill Day event, which is happening in a couple of days. This is an augmentation to that, in which we were urging the federal government to make good on their promise, and Justin Trudeau specifically promised to roll out a nationwide autism strategy. The government has promised consultations on the topic of needs-based therapy, but they have continued to roll out their program effective this morning without conducting those. This has caused a loss of trust between parents, the industry, I say ABA, but really the therapy and specialist industry that supports these children, and the government. Businesses, such as A Balanced Approach in Waterloo, as well as professionals that work for them, are being driven out of business and being driven out of their jobs. There have been layoffs in Waterloo and Kitchener, and numbers now across the province are approaching 100. True needs-based programs don't involve $5,000 and $20,000 annual caps. Instead, what we need is clinically prescribed hours, no more, no less. We need regulation for BCBAs and for the industry that they are a part of. And the government needs to pause and meaningfully consult with experts and parents before rolling out the program. Cynthia Mulligan from City TV referred to this as the sloppiest and most terrible policy rollout she has ever seen in her years at Queen's Park. We are very happy, I want to point out, parents and therapists are very happy with the inclusion of funding for occupational, speech and physical therapy that the Minister announced, but this is not enough. We need to move forward in a way that recognizes the needs of these children. Thank you very much.
Okay, we do have some questions for you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Mayor Urbanovic, and thank you, Mark, for coming in and giving us your presentation. I'm fully aware of the struggles of families with children with autism. In a previous life, I had a partner that was very involved. And the question I want to ask is the motion that is put forward by the mayor, do you feel that it's going to help raise the concern through this community that there's some changes needed?
I think so. Just last week, the township of West Gwillimbury, this is Bradford, West Gwillimbury, passed a similar motion, and so delegations like myself across the province are asking councils to pass similar motions urging the government to pause the implementation of the plan. The solidarity that was expressed in 2016 by municipalities like Kitchener in urging the government, at the time the Liberal government and Minister McCharles, to pause their plan and to revisit consultations was very effective. The government has demonstrated at this point that they're willing to listen when enough people are angry.
Okay. Just off by hand, do you know the statistics of how many children are now dealing with autism as the years go by? Is it increasing or is it decreasing?
It appears that it's increasing.
Pardon me?
It appears to be increasing.
Oh, okay.
The statistics are, at this time, about 1 in 66. When I first started getting involved in the autism movement in 2016, the numbers reported were 1 in 87. As recently as 30 years ago, it was more like 1 in 10,000. So whatever the cause of that change is, it's certainly on the rise.
Okay. My last question is in regards to IBI in general, which is intensive behavior intervention. How successful has that been for your family?
For my family, it's been very impressively successful. My son began therapy as a nonverbal autistic, and he's now mastering many elements of communication for what's known as augmentative communication. He's using a PECS book to communicate his needs to us, and more importantly, it helps him in dealing with frustrations. So he doesn't. He's much less apt to injure himself or to cause disruption in class and that sort of thing when he can communicate what his needs are.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deneen, for coming in and presenting. If the motion that's before us, that will be before us, were to not include details about specific types of therapy, would that be okay with you? Would you be still in support of it?
I would absolutely support it. The only thing I would ask is that the term evidence-based be included if any specific therapy is not included. Mm-hmm. The main reasoning behind that is, in any sort of situation where parents are desperate, they can fall victim to, forgive the term, but snake oil salespeople, right?
Absolutely.
And
yep.
so that's something that we need to be very careful about. There's a number of purported therapies for autism that are actually very destructive, very painful, and extremely inappropriate, and have been in some countries made illegal. So I do think it's very important that we have science behind whatever we're asking for.
Thank you. And then additionally, some of us have received some email correspondence regarding the exclusion of adults in this motion, and I'm just wondering if we were to just add the term "and adults" as well, if that would be amenable to you.
That would actually make me very happy. Mm-hmm. The truth is, and I think every parent with an autistic child knows that they will grow up to be autistic adults, and that historically disabled adults of all kinds, of all diagnoses, have been highly underrepresented.
Absolutely, yeah.
So definitely, it's worth pointing out that prior to this change, adults were still unrepresented by the program, and it would make me very happy to see adults included.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Johnston.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Mr. Deneen, for coming in today. I really appreciate hearing your story. I know you have other people from the community with you as well, and it's really important that this issue has a close lens on it. I'm a former public school board trustee. I sat on the Special Education Advisory Committee when I was there. And perhaps you can comment a little bit more on the economic effects of autism on families. I know I would often get calls from parents who had a difficult time working when their kids were in school, because oftentimes partway through the day they would have to go and pick up their kids from school, and it was very difficult to hold down a job. So perhaps you can comment a little bit on the economics of it as well.
Certainly. So we're very lucky in our family. My son is enrolled at Smithson Public School in Kitchener, which has a very rich autism and special ed program, and so we've only actually been called once this school year in his grade 1 year to come and pick him up. There are definitely families that we're close to who get calls several times a week to come pick up their children. Their kids will be in mainstream classes, and generally overstimulation or some other input will cause a behavior that's not acceptable to the teacher, and the principal will exercise their authority under the Education Act to send that child home. For some of these folks, when the child gets sent home for the 5th or 10th or 20th time, they're asked not to return. And that then poses extreme problems for the family, obviously. So there is, this is a subject that a very prominent researcher from London named Mike Moffat has dubbed the autism tax. And this is a very serious issue in the community for sure.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, those are all the questions we have for you.
Great. Thank you very
Mr. Deneen. Our next delegation is Truk Mock Stevenson. Hope I pronounced that first name correctly. Welcome, Ms. Mock Stevenson.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Let me just get myself set up here. I'm sorry. Oh. Hi, everybody. So my name is Chok Mark Stevenson. I'm a mother of a beautiful boy who is 6 years old, I'm sorry. And he has autism. So I'm here to talk about, just like Mark explained, all of the timeline of the autism program. I'm here to talk about how did this affect the new Ontario autism program, affect my family and the society at whole. My son has autism and in service for about 2 years now. And he has 4 hours of therapy every day, and he's done very good in many ways. So he's going from nonverbal to now he has one word sentence or one full sentence, say, I want, whatever he wants, like food mostly. Just to answer one of the counselor questions, how effective the behavioral therapy is. So at 5 years old, my son, before the therapy, he was not toilet trained, and he was nonverbal. So after 1 year or so of therapy, he's partially toilet trained, and I can go to do the grocery quickly without have to return to the car, because he just wander around and just to touch the cars and the vans, and it's very unsafe, or he will just fuss or cry in the checkout line. At 6 years old, he would learn that he has to sit and wait. When we're outside, he would just take off. He will not take off and just go onto like a street full of cars. Now he learned that he can put coats on and put boots on, but he still needs a little bit of guidance from us or the therapist. Now I waited for 6 years for him to finally call, like, say, good night, mommy, or goodbye, mommy, but he still cannot. He still cannot call me, hey, mommy, look. So, but I had hope before February, before the minister announced a new program, that one day he will be able to communicate with me how he feel, or call me, mommy, look what I do, or I'm hurt, or I'm in pain, or I cannot sleep because of this or that. So that affect the new program affect my family a lot, because he will not be able to learn, the life skill that he would be able to if he in the therapy and have the right funding. And then for the society, if he cannot learn all of those life skills, what will happen if I die one day and he will not be able to take care of himself and safely walk onto the street? Then he will be in group home, so who will pay for all of that? It will be our tax money will have to pay for that. And what is for his life, like his quality of life? He will not have that. He will poop his pen or pee his pen for the rest of his life and cannot even communicate with others how he feel. So that will put a toll in our society in the future. And as a parent, thinking about that really killed me, because I don't want to see my son to be a burden of this society. And as a nurse who worked for like 10 years in the health industry, I see how much my patient depends on the nurses and with the system. So it takes a lot of of our tax money out of that, and I don't want my son and my family become that burden of the society. So I hope that you will help us urge the government to pass the motion that the NDP just had it passed last week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in, Ms. Mock Stevenson. There don't appear to be any questions for you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Marsh, you indicated you'd be willing to move this so we don't need to play musical chairs right now?
Absolutely. I am in support of this motion, and at the same time, I do want to just acknowledge that not everyone agrees on all the different forms of therapy, and I think that it is becoming upon us to acknowledge that words are important, and so if we can keep the general main goal of this motion, which is to show solidarity with the autism community and the support network around people with autism spectrum disorder. And I would like to that being said, I want to remove the third paragraph on this motion and add the term in the last paragraph, just "and adults," where it says, so I'll just read the last paragraph out loud, shall I?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kitchener requests that the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services suspend implementation of its planned changes, including enhancements to the Ontario Autism Program, pending meaningful consultation with a broad range of qualified stakeholders and inclusion of necessary revisions to the program to ensure that autistic children and adults receive the support they need to thrive within their communities, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Premier Ford, Minister MacLeod, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and all municipalities in Waterloo Region.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ioannidis? And Councillor Ioannidis, your
Comments?
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Urbanovic, and thanks for the parents that have come out tonight. I know how important it is, in particular, having early intervention and how important IBI is to children and other forms of therapy. So, there's that increase of children being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, which is like roughly one child out of every 66 kids, which is basically a 30% increase from the last time, which it was in 2012, I think was the last time when they did that study. So that's significant. And in my opinion, no matter which party is governing the province, I think this is a concern that we need to look at, and I think as a province we need to do a better job and look at supporting children with autism, and not only just children but also as adults and as their families. So if there's any little part that I can do to help, and as a council to help and support that cause, I hope this motion does raise more awareness.
Any other comments? No, I'll just briefly... Oh, Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
I just quickly wanted to say that thank you for bringing this to our attention. Not that it wasn't already there, but for us to actually deal with it and have some sort of say to assist in trying to help change the policy and the way the government's seeing it. I think it's really important for us to support all children, no matter what their abilities or disabilities may be. And I think there's other cuts that have been put in place, but I think this is one that we can definitely get on board with and try to send a message to the government that change needs to happen.
Any other comments? No, I'll just briefly make mine. I want to thank Mark for reaching out to me through a mutual friend to discuss the broader issue. Like others, I certainly have been following it in the news and have certainly been talking about it with people, because I think we all know families who are dealing with children or adults in their families with autism. I think this motion, which you provided us with, and which Councillor Marsh has amended based on some feedback we received over the weekend from others who saw it online. I think it addresses their concerns, but most importantly, I think sends a message of support to all who are here. So thank you to all of you who came in this evening, and hopefully, as this is the kind of thing that can bring about all party support for the kinds of changes that are being advocated for here. So with that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on. I'm just going to deal with B2 under Committee of the Whole, and that's the sign variance for 1275 Bleems Road. The delegation is here just to answer any questions. Somebody want to move it? Councillor Singh, seconded by Councillor Galloway-Seelock. Any questions? No? All those in favor? Opposed? That has been approved. There you go. Thank you. We'll now move on then to Councillor Chapman's motion, and we have a couple delegations here for that item. And we'll start with Myron Steinman.
So, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Verbenebik, councillors and staff. I am in full favor of Ward 9 Councillor Debbie Chapman's motion. It's quite complicated and long. I won't have time to read it. But I would like to have one minor change. I prefer that. But I'd like to digress first and say that I deliberately said mayor first, and then councillors, and then staff. I was deliberate in that. I was deliberate in that order. But that's a digression. I don't mean to be rude, but, or maybe I do. So the Ontario Municipal Board was replaced by the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal in April 2018, which was before the last provincial election. And then the Municipal Affairs established a Local Planning Appeal Support Center to provide support to the public on how to navigate the appeal process under the Planning Act. And now it has been proposed to do away with the LPAT and the LPASC. Whereas the public also provides legal and planning advice to residents who not otherwise be able to afford or have expertise to appeal planning decisions. That's where I'd like minor amendment, and that is to say, to take out or have expertise. My understanding on the BP3 development, the neighborhood association hired an expert witness, and the expert witness was not even allowed to talk to the tribunal. It was lawyers that talked to lawyers and planners that talked to planners, but an expert witness could not even talk, much less an ordinary citizen or resident. So that's what I would like to take out, is to take out or have expertise, or wordsmith a little around that, because I do not believe that it should be a legal court case with lawyers talking to lawyers and residents not being able to have a say, even an expert witness hired by a neighborhood association, and this is an expert witness with an architectural firm, right? So the final paragraph is that it be finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, to local MPs and MPPs, to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and to the Region of Waterloo and local area municipalities. So I realize that this council doesn't have jurisdiction over provincial matters, but they do have influence, and I would like this council to try to have some influence on our current government in power at the provincial level. So with that minor variance, I am in full favor of this resolution.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Steinman. And there don't appear to be any questions for you.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming in. And our next delegation on this item is Mr. Hal Yeager. Welcome, Mr. Yeager.
Hello. I'm Hal. Hi. Thank you, Mayor and Councilors, for your time and attention. The Local Planning Appeals Support Center is plain and simply legal aid on land use matters. It provides legal counsel to those who would otherwise be unable to afford it. It provides access to justice. It ensures equality before the law. I am thankful that one of our councillors is prepared to put forth this motion, as I believe each member of this council is striving to do what is right and what is just for this community. I am hopeful that each of you will vote in favor of encouraging the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to continue supporting the Local Planning Appeals Support Center. And thank you for all your hard work.
Great. Thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Yeager, and there don't appear to be any questions for you. So I'll now turn it over to Councillor Chapman. You can just, if you want to, you can either probably just read the operative phrases. If you can click in, though.
Okay, I just want to give a bit of a preamble.
Yeah, sure,
Some of it has already been said.
That's
but,
fine.
As was mentioned, so the LPAT Tribunal replaced the Ontario Municipal Board in 2018, and its role is to resolve disputes related to land use planning applications and planning documents like the official plans and zoning bylaws, etc. The LPAT is a tribunal or a court where these disputes are resolved. An important component of the LPAT, which has already been mentioned, is the support centre. And it's designed to help people or residents understand and navigate Ontario's land use planning and appeal process, a very complicated process. It's designed to help the public participate in early engagement and resolution when there are disputes that arise. And it's designed to express their concerns in land use planning terms and to help the public prepare to present at public meetings, mediation, and hearings. The support centre serves as a filter. It will only support cases that it considers to be valid, cases that are appealable. This makes for an efficient process and prevents non-appealable cases from delaying the development process. As Dr. Dawn Parker stated in her submission, we will all benefit by efficient and timely approval of projects. The Support Centre provides professional legal and planning advice to residents who would otherwise not have the financial means or expertise to appeal land use planning applications or planning documents. And as Mr. Jagger referred to it as a sort of a legal aid service to residents who could not possibly contest developers or cities' decisions. Finally, public participation in local decision-making is fundamental to democracy as it builds a sense of community and pride. So it's in this context that I table this motion and hope that I can count on the support of the rest of Council. So I move, and seconded by Councillor Sarah Marsh, that whereas the Ontario Municipal Board was replaced by the LPAT in April 2018, which is an independent administrative tribunal responsible for hearing appeals on a variety of Planning Act applications, and whereas the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing established the LPAT Support Centre to provide support to the public on how to navigate the appeal process under the Planning Act, and whereas the LPAT support system also provides legal and planning advice to residents who would not otherwise be able to afford or have the expertise to appeal Planning Act decisions, and whereas the support system has stopped accepting new requests and is scheduled to close on June 30th, 2019, and whereas the public participation in local decision-making is fundamental to democracy as it builds sense of community and pride, be it resolved that the City of Kitchener encourage the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to continue supporting and operating the Local Appeal Support Center, and that it be copied to the number of different bodies. I don't have to read that. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That's been moved and seconded. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you. Through you, I just wanted to say that I wholly support Councillor Chapman's resolution. It's very important to give people the tools to be able to navigate the system whenever they feel that they need to. So thank you very much for bringing this forward, and again, I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to second this motion. The LPAT Support Center provided very valuable supports to members of our community. It is an equalizer that really helps to level the playing field for residents who want to take part in the planning appeal processes. Members of our community here in Kitchener, in particular members of downtown core neighborhoods that have been very affected by development over the last few years, have done an exemplary job in taking it upon themselves to learn a great deal about planning documents, zoning allowances, and essentially becoming as close to an expert as a layperson can when it comes to planning issues. And for some of these folks, they have taken it on as almost like another job over many, many months and even the last few years. And the LPAT Support Center has alleviated the need for that to a certain little bit degree, and that is just once these folks who have become very, very knowledgeable about how planning rules affect them and their properties, if they choose to put forward an appeal, then they at least have the support of lawyers and expert planners to help them navigate, because regardless of how many countless hours residents have put into learning, it doesn't make them lawyers and it doesn't make them planners. And so to be able to have that support and also not to have to pay out of pocket thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars towards being able to support their appeals, I really think that this is an essential part of making sure that our appeal system is fair for all parties.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Mayor Urbanovic. I support the motion by Councillor Chapman. I think it's rather a significant component that should be addressed. As for myself, I do believe in the advisory committee for the province, but at the same time, we also have the same equal voice for residents in order to be a successful advisory board or judiciary board. So I think it's important that the citizens do have access to the same supports as the individuals who are being appealed, or the developers or whoever it is that is proposing their developments as well.
Any other comments? Not. I just want to thank Councillor Chapman for bringing it forward this evening. I think this was an important part of the recommendations and the changes that came as part of the LPAT. We know that there's going to be obviously at some point a review in terms of what's working well and what isn't. This, I think, is a component that leveled the playing field amongst the various parties, and it's unfortunate it was cut at this stage. So I will be supporting your motion. So all those in favor? Okay. And that's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you all for coming in on that item this evening. We'll now move on to the reports of the committees, and we'll start with Community and Infrastructure Services, and that would be Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yes, it's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dave Schneider that the report of Community Infrastructure Services Committee be adopted, numbers 1 through 11, and I have an amendment for number 11 that I would like to bring forward. So if we can take that one separately, that would be great.
Okay. Sorry, thank you. Okay, sorry.
So I've brought forward the report.
Yes,
And I have an amendment for
Okay.
number 11, so I'd like to deal with it separately.
Okay, we'll deal with it separately. And who's seconding it?
Councillor
Councillor Schneider, thank you. Okay. Councillor Marsh, is it on item 11? Different item, so let's deal with 11 first then.
Okay. I'm going to have to read it off the screen. I didn't have time to print it. So I had brought forward a similar, or not, I guess it's not similar, but something like this in committee meetings with regards to the arena and the Southwest. And so I've worked with staff to come up with something that's agreeable with respect to adding this amendment to the Leisure Facilities Master Plan. So if I just read it quickly, that by the end of 2020, the city analyzed current ICE demands within the community to identify short-term opportunities for improved user access, and that the city conduct a detailed business case which will be completed by September 2022 regarding the construction of a new arena in the southwest portion of the city that includes a comprehensive ICE demand study and a decommissioning strategy for an existing arena, and makes a recommendation on the appropriate timing and the detailed costing of a new arena. So just to add that to the rest of the recommendations within the Leisure Facilities Master Plan.
Okay. And Councillor Schneider seconding that as well?
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Schneider, you're second. Okay. We had a nod in the affirmative. Okay. Councillor Marsh, yours was a separate issue. Councillor Chapman, separate issue or this issue?
I just wanted confirmation from staff that before the leisure, the list of proposed facility enhancements and changes actually is finalized, that there's extensive public consultation around some of these proposals. I'm thinking particularly with the Mill Court and Community Centre expansion.
Okay, that's always part of the process with these, but Mr. May.
Am I right outside?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I can confirm that once these have been slotted in the 10-year capital forecast, as the individual projects come up, there is always a significant community engagement component. So I think you asked specifically about the Mill Courtland Community Centre. We would certainly be sitting down with residents in that neighborhood to find out what it is exactly they want and need in that centre, and then build the plans based on that input.
Councillor Singh on number 11? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I like the direction that it's changed. Initially, I had my concerns in the speed with which the review or the business case was being suggested for completion. So this does give ample time. I do still have some reservation and concern with the elements in the second paragraph specific to decommissioning strategy. So maybe for clarification, are you saying that that's part of the study? Or through this amendment, it's automatically just giving direction that that be a course of action of decommissioning of a arena? Because that's a takeaway from one community for the benefit of another, and I just want to see benefits to all areas. Without a full review and community consultation, I still would have the same concerns.
So it would just be, it's not giving direction. It's giving it as an option that would be looked at within, so it includes a comprehensive ICE demand study and a decommission strategy for an existing arena. I don't think that through the process, if that is deemed what needs to happen, then that would go through that process. But I don't think we're deciding today to decommission an arena.
Rather than specifying a decommissioning of any arena, would just not the comprehensive ice demand study would look at all of that without actually referencing of any closure of any building? Would you have any concern to that amendment?
I think it's something that needs to be looked at throughout the comprehensive study for a business case. So I think it's something that I would like to leave in there.
Okay, I appreciate that you don't want to make that change. I have a question to staff. I can ask that now. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I think earlier it was already asked by Councillor Chapman about a public consultation. So would that be, what would the avenue be as part of this strategy or review? Would we be looking at the various facilities and seeing if some could accommodate a closure, and then that would necessitate a full consultation of that community?
Mr. Bay?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we would certainly take a very detailed look at all of our existing facilities and identify potential priorities for decommissioning. A big component of that work would be to engage the community.
Okay, all right. All right, good.
Okay. Councillor Gazzola on number 11 or on something else?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, no, I want, as it came up in committee, I want it broken out and voted upon separately, and I would like to have a recorded vote for each part of it.
So you're asking that we have a separate vote on each paragraph?
Well, when we dealt with it in committee, the first two paragraphs were sort of together.
Okay.
Now they've been broken apart, but they don't really. So, yeah, I'd like to have, you can put the first two together. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with the third paragraph.
Okay, and then we'll deal with the third one, and then we'll, actually, I'll deal with, and then I'll just, I guess, deal with, is this an addition or an amendment, really, Councillor Galloway-Sila? It's her motion.
It's an addition, or I guess an amendment.
Okay, I'll deal with it as an
not-
addition, and,
yeah.
and I'll deal with that paragraph last. So, we'll deal with the first two paragraphs. Councillor Singh? Yeah.
Again, there's elements of this I support, there's some I still have concern with. Could we vote the decommissioning strategy of an existing arena separately? So that component separately.
Okay, so I see where you're coming from. I also see where Councillor Galloway-Silak's coming from. Is maybe sort of the solution that we just put in the word a possible decommissioning strategy?
That would, yes.
It gets to what you're, I think, trying to achieve, Councillor Galloway-Silak? Does that work? Okay, so that
eases my mind.
We're good, okay. Councillor Gazzola on the first two paragraphs?
Comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I didn't support this at committee. I supported the first two paragraphs. I just want to be clear on where I'm coming from. This, I have total support of accepting the document and tabling it. But what I was opposed to, and still am opposed to, is approving where this funding is going to go to, and the allocation of that. Virtually, we're approving this report, which is a leisure facilities master plan to service for the next 5 years, and we're basically approving that will become the gospel for where we go down the road. It's an excellent report. I've read it several times. There's a great deal of information in there. Covers every aspect of every recreational facility that we have in the city. It does a great deal for talking about demographics and all that, but it is really, really lacking on costs. There's a 1 or 2 page on generalization on cost, but no great detail on where the funding is going to come from and why, how it's going to be approved and in what order it's going to approve. A good part of it depends on the development charges program that we're dealing with right now, but we have not passed anything with that. We talked about it today, but we didn't pass it. That's coming back to council. Won't be approved by council until June. To my way of thinking is before we approve a document like this, it's for the next 5 years, that we need to approve where our funding is going to come from and the whole development charges bylaw. This is like approving going into a restaurant and ordering off the menu without any prices on the menu. Now, I don't know. I'm not used to doing that, and I can't support that, and I never have in the past. I'd like to know what things are going to cost, because once it's in here, people will point to it, and there it is. It's in our leisure facilities master plan, and therefore let's go ahead with it. So I have no problems. As I said, I think staff have done an excellent job in putting everything together. The only one factor that's just there's not enough financial information, and like it or not, we have to end up paying for it sometimes. So I will support the receiving the documents and referring them to the future business planning and budget processes. That's fine, but I won't support the document itself. And I ask for a recorded vote on each aspect of the report.
Yep, that's fine. Councillor Ioannidis, comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ravanovich. I have no issues with approving the amendment brought forward by Councillor Galloway Sealock, and in particular, I'm pleased to see this list and move forward. In particular, dealing with the Forest Heights Community Center expansion. I know it's been discussed at that center for the last 7 years, and we're literally busting out of the seam. So I'm glad that that's there and it's being recognized. As far as the leisure facilities master plan in general, I totally disagree with Councillor Gazzola. I think it's important and imperative of any organization have plans and a strategic analysis of any direction a corporation will go. And without that, you can't just base everything on dollars, because we do have that as the kick of the can every budget meeting every year to deal with all those issues. So if you don't have a plan, how are you going to budget any of these items? So this is important that we go through this first step.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering if Councillor Gazzola would be willing to reframe the third paragraph, to be reworded in such a way that it would, because I understand where you're coming from, but if it were to say something like that the following list of indoor and outdoor leisure facilities that have been prioritized be funded through development charges if they're available. I don't know, I haven't got the wording here. Because I think the concern is that if the development charges aren't there to cover these facilities, then it's going to come out of the tax base, right? And that's what your objection, well, maybe I'm reading into it, but I think that would also be problematic. So if we were to somehow word it in a way that would say if the development charges would cover the expenses of these facilities, would you then be willing to approve it?
Councillor Gazzola?
No, I mean, there's no question in my mind that down the road the development charges will cover this. That's where the bulk of these things have to come from. It's for growth, and new people pay for growth through the development charges. It's not a question. It's a question of when will they fit in the development charges. What will be the prioritized listing as to how they fit in there? Now, I asked staff about that, and I read this document several times, and I saw no criteria for prioritizing what comes first, what comes second, and no cost figures, and not just for these projects, but other projects that we need to do that aren't included on this master list. So it's the whole case of having a document without any cost estimates. I can support it all, and I'm sure the public can, but they have a right to know what these things are going to cost. And they're all great projects, nothing wrong with them. But how you can plan ahead without ever thinking about where's the money going to come from?
Okay, so I just want to get some clarification here based on your comments, Councillor Chapman, and maybe Mr. May can help us here. But obviously our goal is to fund these things through development charges, but if there isn't development charge money, then capital from operating is an option, but it's not a requirement. That's a choice that the council of the day will make, is my understanding. Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's absolutely correct. I would draw your attention to page 2-8 of this earlier package of the strategic session. And on that page, it lists all of the indoor and outdoor rec facilities with individual cost estimates.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Galloway-Silak.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I have some comments, but I just wanted to point out that we're not approving the document, we're receiving it, and that everything is being referred to departmental business plans and budget processes, and that the following list of the indoor and outdoor rec facilities, the priority be approved, but it all be referred to the development charge study. So I don't think we're setting anything in stone. We're going to have a kick at the can again when we go through development charges, business plans, strategic priorities. So I think it's important for us to move this guiding document forward. Having said that, I wanted to also just commend staff, because this report was done in-house by staff, and I think it's a lot of work went into this, and a lot of great thought and a lot of public engagement, and it came out clear that there needs to be investment made in our community, and it came out clear that some of that investment needs to happen in areas that are underserviced. And so I'm really happy to see that a number of the projects are going to happen in the southwest area of Kitchener. I still am a little disappointed that we don't have the arena in there as a priority, but I will take the compromise of the amendment or the addition that I'm putting forward. We are going to continue, even through this document, we're going to continue to see pressures on a lot of our rec facilities, including field space, cricket pitches, the arena, as well as ball fields. And so I think we need to continue to do this document and make sure that we work with our partners in the community to make sure that we're building what needs to be built at a pace that we can build with the funding that needs to be in place, which will happen for the most part through development charges. So I'm really happy to be able to support this document, and I just want to again commend staff on doing a terrific job engaging the public, as well as creating this document for us to use for the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you for those comments. There don't appear to be any others. I too will thank staff for all of their work in this. This is an important document that really does meet the needs of our average citizen who uses our recreational facilities, through to our community groups and organizations that help organize both amateur sport and semi-pro and pro, quite frankly, within the community. And all those folks tend to use various parts of our facilities at different points in time. Councillor Galloway-Selak's absolutely right. This was a document that was developed in-house, whereas in the past, as far as I can remember, in all my times, we've always used external consultants, and so kudos to staff for doing that. It probably left a little bit extra in the kitty for one of these projects to move forward. And so with that, I will deal then with the first two paragraphs, then I'll deal with the third paragraph, and then I'll deal with this addition. Yep. So, vote now on the first two paragraphs. Yeah, recorded vote. And that's carried unanimously. The third paragraph. Voting's open. All those in favor? All those opposed? That too is carried. And now we'll deal with the two additional paragraphs that have been moved by that Councillor Galloway-Selak introduced. Voting's open. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Great, thank you. Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee, Councillor Marsh.
Actually, before we move on, I had another.
Sorry? Oh, sorry, thank you. Before Councillor Marsh, we'll deal with 1 to 10, the balance of the Community Services report.
And I had,
sorry?
I had an addition based on this, which number? On tier 2, on number 2.
Okay.
I just want to introduce a motion based on the tier 2 community grants, because as we all know, the community grants budget is one amount, and so each year that another tier 2 recipient graduates to becoming a tier 1 recipient, their funding moves with them into tier 1, leaving an ever decreasing amount in tier 2 to be available for those who apply for any new initiatives or one-time initiatives in tier 2. And when I met with staff about this, they shared with me that it used to be years ago that there was a policy that dealt with this with tier 2 in a way that met the needs of tier 2 applications differently and more appropriately than we do now, and that they are looking at reviewing the policy to introduce something that meets the needs in a better way, but that's not going to be in time for 2020 budget discussions. And so what I'd like to suggest, and here's my motion, is that whereas the tier 2 funding model has not kept up with the funding needs of our community partners, and whereas staff are planning a review of tier 2 grants to be completed sometime in 2020, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to provide short-term funding increase options in time for the 2020 budget discussions. So basically it's like an issue paper I'm asking for, but I basically just want to see staff come back to us with options that we can deliberate and decide on later during the 2020 budget discussions in order to better address these pressing needs. We had something like 3 times the amount of of funding requests as we were able to allocate. Now, this is no fault of staff. Staff have done a terrific job of really, along with the committee that reviews the grants, has done a terrific job to really do their best within the budget that they are given to grant as much as they can to the community organizations that apply. That being said, I really don't think it's the right amount. It hasn't increased with our community's growth, and so that's why this is another one of those things where we have strategies that are going to take a long time to develop, and to do it adequately, it will take more than a year, but we need to address the need in the short term, and that's why I'm asking for this.
Okay, is there a seconder for your amendment? Councillor Singh. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I like where this is going, so I think it's something I can support. I just have a question of staff, if I could. I'm not sure if you'll know offhand, but how do previous years, the Tier 2 grants, the total amount we give out, how does it relate to the number we have for this year, the $173,000? Does it fluctuate very much?
Mr. Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know the exact number. I do know that it's generally within $20,000 or $30,000, about the same amount.
Okay, and going over how many years backwards, like 10 years ago, was it around the same amount?
So 10 years ago was when we first created it, so all I can do is speak to while I've been here, and as long as I've been here. What's happened is when we have big years where a bunch of Tier 2 groups go up to Tier 1, we have found funding and moved it from other sources. So there was some other arts and culture funding at one point that got moved over. And so we have, for the most part, been lucky to be able to find other pots of money to augment the Tier 2 pot.
Okay. And was staff aware of this motion coming forward at all this evening? The reason I ask is, I guess I could ask Councillor Marsh the same question. Would the intention be a transfer from, basically an operating transfer, to ensure that this amount grows every year, like whether it's inflationary or whatever those options are?
Yeah, I think it's dangerous to create policy on the fly, as I think we've talked about in the past. But this is really just a short-term solution until staff come forward with a more fulsome recommendation for the long term. So I don't know where the funding would come from. I know that, for now, I would be happy if staff came up with recommendations, regardless of where they recommend.
Okay, so yeah, just before you click out, and again, I want to support this, but I think staff might need some additional direction, then, just in terms of, and for me to support it as well, to be honest, in terms of what ranges you're looking in terms of an increase. Like, is it you want to see, like something along the lines of a $25,000 bump and then inflationary increases going forward, or is it something much larger or much smaller? I just need to know sort of the quantum of what you're looking for.
Well, again, if they can give us, let's say, a minimum of 3 different options, then at that time we can look at it. At minimum, I would say the increase needs to be $25,000 in a bump. But also, it's going to depend on our applications each year as to how much is the appropriate amount. But if we give them a bigger bucket of money to be able to allocate from, then it would be less onerous on the committee to slash each budget. Maybe sometimes they might say, well, this one absolutely needs every dollar that they've requested, and other requests might feel, oh, this is way too much. They don't need this amount that they've asked for. So I'm even suggesting that we still leave it at the discretion of the committee. And they may end up having more money left over than they usually do, and that's fine with me, as long as they have sufficient amount to draw from in the first place.
Okay, if just a really brief comment, Mr. Mayor, so I'll click back in if you don't mind, but I'll support this. I always get worried when we talk about grants, because it can be a very highly political thing, and I'm really in support of how we've delegated that authority so it doesn't become a big political issue on how to dole these out. But I think Councillor Marsh's approach is entirely appropriate, and it's something I'll support now. I look forward to supporting come budget time.
Okay, great, thank you. So I will deal with the amendment, I guess, first, to number 2. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Number 2 as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The balance of 1 through 10. All those in favor? Opposed? That too is carried. And now back to you, Councillor Marsh, for the Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee report.
It has been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chapman that the Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee motions be adopted.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving on, unfinished business, there is none. New business, I'll wait to deal with my motion under Committee of the Whole, so that we're only changing chairs once. Questions and answers. Oh, Regional Council update. Sorry. Three things in the Regional Council update. Number one, the Regional Council at its next committee meeting next Tuesday will be dealing with the staff report on the issue of consumption and treatment sites. That report will be made public this Friday afternoon. As part of that, once Regional Council has had an opportunity to consider the issue, if there is a Kitchener site that is moving forward, then our council will need to consider that, because that's part of the provincial process. We'll need to consider the recommendation coming out of that. So that's number one. Number two, at the last Regional Council meeting, we were dealing with the issue of the regional review. Councillor Strickland brought forward a motion that on next Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays, a week and a half from now, on the 17th, we'll be dealing with we'll be providing an opportunity for those who want to register as delegations to appear and offer their viewpoints on the regional review. So that will be from 7 to 10 on that night. The meeting will be a public meeting, so local councils will be able to attend or watch at home if they want. In terms of the input that's provided, the intent is that it will be basically an input session with little to no questions from council, and the minutes of that, the video, and any documentation will simply be forwarded to the advisors and to the minister from that session. Since then, and I learned this through the media, I haven't had official correspondence today yet on this, but the minister apparently has also announced that the advisors will be doing their own consultation or hearing delegations from the public, and that that is going to be taking place on the 24th here in this region, and people will be able to, based on the online story I read, be able to register as of Wednesday on the provincial website if they want to attend as a delegation in front of the advisors with respect to the regional review. Was that a question on?
Sure.
So I just want to clarify, Mayor Babich, so the region is holding an input session on which date?
On the 17th.
The 17th, and then the province's official process is doing what sounds like the exact same thing on the 24th?
So in fairness, the province had not announced their process when regional council considered this issue, and that just happened today. And they'll be having a session on the 24th. Other municipalities also have some, and I'll talk about them when I get to my motion later on. And the third thing, because I know Councillor Gazzola always asks where we're at. No? Okay. Well, I will just share, I know that staff are continuing to work on the issue of the trail crossing in the Fairway area, and continuing to negotiate with landowners in that regard. So that's that. Another regional question, Councillor Gazzola?
It's a question, and I spoke to staff separately on that other issue, so I got my update on that previously. But no, I have a question.
On region?
No, not on the region, no.
Okay.
I'll wait.
Oh, we already did questions and answers, so go ahead.
No,
I'm done my regional report.
No, you didn't do questions and answers, you just came to it now.
Oh, you're right, you are right, sorry, thank you.
No,
It's the jersey.
I want to ask a question about our process that we seem to be going through. I've been used to many years of a process where items are discussed in a committee meeting, and then full discussion, and then a vote is taken, and then councillors have a week or more to think about it, and it's ratified at the following council meeting. And that's good, because councillors have an opportunity to think about things and perhaps change their mind. And we saw one tonight that there was a considerable change of mind, which is good. What I'm questioning now is that we're getting more and more separate resolutions coming to council meeting. Tonight, there are 6 of them, and they really, debate is somewhat limited. They don't follow the same process of a full debate that you have in committee, with also the other opportunity to have a week off in between to think about them, to get other opinions from your constituents. They're all settled here and now tonight. So my question is it possible that these resolutions should go to a committee meeting first and then come to council for ratification, rather than all coming and being dealt with in a rather quick period of time?
So that's a good question. As you know, the practice has been historically at this council that we deal with resolutions from members of council at council meetings typically, not at committee. Certainly it's something we can take a look at and see if that's maybe something we want to consider. It would require some changes in terms of how we do things, just because of the way committee agendas are circulated versus council agendas and so on. So it would require, a longer notice and different things like that. So, but maybe leave it with us, and we can take a look at it.
Yeah. In the past, it's maybe been one resolution, maybe 2, but now when you see tonight, we have 6. I don't know, we're not done yet.
Well, in fairness, I think there were 4. One was sort of a routine one that's required by law in terms of our ownership of the hydro utility, and
so there are only 5.
Well, and the other 2 were part of the reports. So your point's taken, and we'll take a look at it, and we'll report back. Okay, moving on then to bylaws, first reading. It's been moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Councillor Michaud that leave be given to the mover and seconder to introduce the bylaws listed on the agenda, and that the same be taken as read a first time and stand referred to the committee of the whole. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. It's been moved by Councillor Ioannidis that council resolve itself into committee of the whole. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Ioannidis, over to you.
Thank you.
Sorry, you know what? Just 1 second. There were no other bylaws? Okay, good. I forgot to ask. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Urbanovic. Do we have a mover for the second reading of the bylaw? Councillor Galloway Seelock.
Councillor Gazzola is in the queue.
I'm going to move the tender.
Okay. Do we have any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Gazzola moved the tenders.
And I have some questions.
You have some questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, it's more of a comment than a question. When I look at the first tender, for example, we have a surplus on that project of 25%. I've looked at there are several here tonight that have quite huge surpluses. They're big surpluses. I look back on the ones that staff have approved by themselves without having to come here. There were 2 there that were approved. One had an 18% surplus and the other one had an 8% surplus. The point is that funding for these things impact our utility charges that we're charging our customers. And so we're setting up our plans and we've set our fees, our rates, and what we expect to spend for operations and capital, and you have all these projections where we've provided considerably more than we have to, and that follows that the rates that we're charging our utility customers are higher than they need to be. I've been preaching about this for several years, and I just wanted to point that out when we sit here and look at these tenders. I have another question on natural gas residential water heaters. On residential water heaters, I see there's an 11% increase this year, which seems to be is that an abnormal increase? Because that's going to get passed along to our customers that rent water heaters. Is that not right?
Ms. McGoldrick.
So through you, Chair, we were told in terms of the 11% increase that the reason for that was related to materials and associated tariff charges.
Tariff, did you say?
Tariff, that's
okay,
correct. In terms of the rental water heater rate, the 2019 rates have been set through budget. And the last time there was an increase, I believe, was in 2018. So we would look to see what this means in terms of future costs, but the 2019 rates are set.
Well, I was just wondering if in a situation like that where there's such a high increase, if it's necessary to purchase as many as you do, or could you sort of drag your feet for a year until the prices settle down and we get rid of all this tariff talk. The other question I wondered was, why did we split the tender? Could we not increase it seemed to me that the first tender was a little bit better in that it gave 8 years warranty, I think, and the second one gives a 6-year warranty. So why could we not, after we've approved it, increase the order from the lowest tender?
Mr. Lautenbach.
Through the chair, so the tender was put together with the option to split based on the lowest unit cost. So the items that are listed for each of those vendors was the lowest price provided for the specific unit that we were looking for in terms of the hot water tanks.
All right, thank you.
Is it, no further questions, Councillor Gazzola? No, that's it. Okay. It's been moved by Councillor Gazzola. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We've dealt with B2 already. Dealing with B3. Do I have a mover? Oh, we only dealt with the one side.
Yeah, so I'll move the rest of them.
You move the rest of them? Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Dealing with item number 3, Ram Street. Do we have a mover? Councillor Johnston. Any questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Dealing with item number 4, do we have a mover? Councillor Galloway-Sealock. Any questions? Councillor Chapman. Hold on a sec, Mayor. Do you have?
Sorry.
Yeah, my question has to do with the Heritage Committee. It says here that we're putting forward one member at large, but there are actually 2 vacancies. And I was wondering and 2 applicants. Is there any reason why we can't bring both of them onto the Heritage Committee? I mean, one of them, the requirements are one is a member at large and that the other be somebody who lives in the Heritage District, which the one that we were putting forward for a member at large is actually may as well live in the Heritage District. I think he lives in Cedar Hill, which is adjacent to the Victoria Park and Civic Center areas. So, we do have 2 vacancies. Is there a reason why we couldn't fill both with the 2 applicants?
Do we have someone that's going to answer that? You got it, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The terms of reference for the Heritage Committee require that a representative for any of the Heritage Conservation Districts live within that particular district, which is why the one applicant was put forward at this point to fulfill the member at large position, because we have no applicants at this point who live in the actual Heritage Conservation Districts where we have the vacancies.
Okay. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I didn't see the list of the applicants, but I was of the understanding that former Councillor Yanetsky had applied to sit on the Heritage Committee. Is that correct? And there was no... Is that correct?
Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct. Former Councillor Yanetsky and Mr. Gundrum were the 2 individuals who were put forward for the Heritage Committee for the member at large vacancy that we currently have. Went to the nominating committee, and they have made the selection and the recommendation as put forward here in the report.
Can another person be put forward when council deals with it in council?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly the prerogative of council to over-appoint if they so desire. You could put forward former Councillor Yanetsky as another member at large if you wish. You have over-appointed in the past for other committees, but at this point neither of the 2 applicants fulfill the requirements for one of the HCD vacancies.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would like to put forward Mr. Yanetsky's name. I know we're short members on that committee, and no one comes with better qualifications than former Councillor Yanetsky, so I would like to put his name forward. The ideal would be for the applicant put forward by the nominating committee and Mr. Yanetsky both to be to sit on the committee. The committee can use some good experience.
Okay. Do we have any questions in regards to that motion? No? All those in favor? Voting on the amendment. Just on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That did not pass. On the original motion, I don't even know who, did I get a mover? Councillor Galloway Seelock. Do we have any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number C, dealing for information. We have a mover? We don't need to. Okay, so Madam Clerk, we don't have anyone that wants to pull that forward. Do we have any other additional?
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'd like to ask that we move item C out of for information.
Okay.
C5.
All right, C5. We'll take a vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Go ahead.
Well, and I'm really not looking to have a lengthy conversation tonight about it, but I do think that, I do know there were members of the public that wanted an opportunity to provide, some feedback and so on, and I know some obviously took the opportunity to do that online, but I think it would be helpful that we put this on a subsequent financing admin agenda, and that way, people have an opportunity that if they want to come and be a delegation to speak to issues, because I know there are some, quite frankly, that the community felt strongly about, including the size of voting precincts and so on, and number of voting locations. And some of the suggestions for next time around may not be consistent with sort of what some of the community feedback was. So I'd like to at least see it on an agenda so the public has an opportunity to attend. So that's...
Is that something that we need direction, or...
Do you need a formal motion, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you would do a referral.
Sorry?
You would do a referral.
Okay, so I'll move a referral to Finance and Admin Committee.
Okay, we don't need a seconder on that one.
A future one.
A future one, yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be on the 15th.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
And before 2022.
Madam Clerk, do we have any other additional items? No? Okay. With that, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to move my motion that's in front of you, and it comes out of the comments I made earlier with respect to the regional government review consultation. And I think, certainly I've had conversations with many of you, and everyone has been concerned about the importance of there being the opportunity for the public to have input into what the province is looking at in terms of the regional review and so on. We do know that the region has now proceeded with a consultation that they're doing. My understanding is Cambridge has passed a motion where they're going to be doing a consultation, and I believe Wilmot as well is going to be doing one. And we now know as of today that the province is also looking at providing an opportunity for people to be heard by the two advisors. One of the things that I think has been, in my mind, really important is that we have a way of meaningfully engaging with Joe Average Citizen. I know there's certainly people I expect will come out to the region on the 17th, or perhaps now to the province on the 24th, with very strong views on both sides of sort of this whole issue of regional reform. But how does the average citizen feel with respect to the three areas that the province has asked us to look at? So service review, the whole issue of politicians, and making sure that people can feel connected to their politicians and have good access to them, and thirdly, the issue of structure. And so instead of, quite frankly, repeating what's happening at the region, I don't think there'd be a lot of value in that. I think doing something that's more a statistically representative survey of our residents would be beneficial. I mean, we do these kinds of surveys on a regular basis for things like our customer service strategy and different things. And I think, quite frankly, local governance, which is the order of government that is closest to our citizens and impacts their day-to-day lives from the time they wake up in the morning to, quite frankly, when they go to bed at night, is something that no doubt would be of interest to our citizens. So in considering what the region and Cambridge and others have looked at, and having some dialogue with our staff around this, I think looking at doing a representative survey would be probably the most beneficial input that we could provide into the process to in fact augment what's already happening. I'm pleased to see that the province announced today their own consultation. That was something that I know the heads of council certainly asked the advisors and asked the minister to consider, and so I'm pleased to see that has been added to their process because it is important going forward. So that would be my motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay.
Councillors Gazzola, Davy Marsh.
Councillor Gazzola. Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
No, I don't have any concerns with, I would really like to hear, the more people we hear from, the better grasp we get of the whole situation. My only question here is this is a survey, and we're going to be asking questions, and in this type of a survey, it's like having a special ballot on during an election, and the way questions are worded and all that can have a lot of impact. So will council get to see the questions before we go live on this survey?
So I don't know, Mr. Chapman, if you want to touch on this, because I believe you've had some conversations already with one of the companies that we use. Sorry, Councillor Ioannidis, you're chairing.
Whatever the mayor said.
Through the chair, a couple of comments, Councillor Gola, in response to your question. The province is interested in questions of governance, service delivery, and decision-making, and so it's actually a fairly broad scope that they've set, and so we think that we need to ask questions in all three of those areas. So we don't think it will be distilled down to one or two key questions that will be polarizing. We do need to ask specific questions. We had a discussion with a firm that we've worked with in the past, and it will be a very rapid process if we want to have results by even early May. And so I would envision that if we get direction from council tonight to undertake a survey, I, with a small team of staff, will work with a consultant to form those questions. They'll be phrased neutrally. I think it's possible that we, in that timeline, could share them with council. I don't think the timeline would allow for a council decision-making process around those questions, but certainly if you had any feedback before they go out to citizens, we could allow a short window for that.
I'm satisfied with that because you've obviously put some thought into it already. So, and you are getting outside help in addition, it sounds. So no, that's fine. It would be nice if council can see them, but I don't see the necessity to have it debated at council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davy?
Thank you. I was actually, Councillor Gazzola, I had the same question, I guess. And I do, I'm sensitive to the time sensitivity. I obviously need to get it out as quickly as possible. I'm just wondering if it's your motion, Mr. Mayor, if you would, if you'd be amenable to perhaps appointing a member of council or two to just in whatever team staff forms. And I'd obviously like to have my name in that, just to oversee some of the questions because there are some questions I think that need answering, and just some clarity in terms of what those questions are. So if not, it's your motion. I'm not 100% tied to the idea, but I do have a personal, obvious interest in this, and I guess I think all members of council across Ontario probably want to have a little more input than they've been offered by the province, so I would put it to you.
So I think my suggestion would be, Mr. Chapman has suggested staff are prepared to share them with us, and to, subject to people responding back quickly, provide some feedback. I think that might be...
Oh, that's okay too. Yeah.
I think that might be the most effective way, just to keep things moving along. And certainly if you have some thought, I think if anybody on council has some thoughts in the meantime, probably share them with Mr. Chapman ASAP.
Okay, excellent.
I see someone's clicked in.
I was just going to ask if I could comment now.
Okay.
Chair Hernandez, or
go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I think this is important. I'm actually rather in favor of this review. I'm not, the part that I'm concerned about is the process in which it's being undertaken. It's been undertaken very, very quickly. And if I'm being honest, I don't think there's been a whole lot of indications of transparency about how this is going to go forward. As far as I know, the recommendations coming from Ceiling and Fenn are not mandated to be public yet. And at least we're doing something here that the public will be able to see in terms of transparency, in terms of what the residents of the City of Kitchener want to see. And I think it's very, very important and statistically significant as well, because I think over the years we've all seen that the comments and thoughts of those that go to appear as a delegation or choose to be engaged are sometimes very different from those that aren't so proactive, and I think that information is important as well. And I have no idea what the results of this will be, but I'm just really happy to see we're going to see at least some level, guaranteed some level of transparency in terms of what the residents of Kitchener want.
Okay, thank you. We have one more. Councillor Marsh.
Councillor Gazzola and Councillor Davey have asked the same about the same question that I wanted. So basically, I was wanting to. In addition, I wanted to ask the mayor if your motion, if you're wanting to provide any direction to staff about what areas you want questions to attempt to answer, whether it be around number of members of council or around potential amalgamation of areas, or do you have any specific requests?
So, I don't have specifics. I think what I would say to you is we know what the three broad areas are that the province has identified. Certainly, after my meeting with the advisors, I sort of shared sort of the broad themes that we covered off in my half hour with the advisors. So, in the area, for example, of services, there are some things where there are some services that potentially could either go to the region, or some services that could come to municipalities, like fire, for example, where we've been able to now sort of do the shared dispatch. So that sort of looks after that one. I think when it comes to the issue of regional or of structure, the question is, quite frankly, do you have to continue with the existing structure? Do you move towards a single tier structure? Do you move towards a two-tier structure with different combinations? And presumably staff would have the ability to work with the firm they're going to work with to develop those questions in an unbiased way. And on the issue of numbers of politicians, I've never believed that, quite frankly, numbers of politicians is an issue. And quite frankly, if you compare us to Niagara region, we're already half of what Niagara region is, with significantly more population. And as Mayor Jaworski often likes reminding us, the cost of all the politicians in Waterloo region combined is less than the cost of Hamilton Council. Again, I mean, inevitably that's an area of interest to the province, so some questions would need to get developed around that.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have further questions? No further questions? Okay, I'm glad to see that the mayor has put forward this motion. Like I myself, I'm a little bit displeased on the public engagement and engagement with this process in general. I'm in favor of looking at having review. Most definitely we need a review, and it's probably healthy to do it every so many years to look at this. But I would have definitely preferred a lot more consultation and transparency in regards to this, especially to some level of government such as the one that we represent, as the mayor had mentioned, deals with citizens and impacts their lives more than any other level of government. And with that, it's been moved by the mayor. Do we need a seconder for this one? Nope. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That's unanimous. Okay, so what's next?
Move that the committee rise and report.
All in favor? That's carried. It's been moved by myself, that the proceedings and the recorded pecuniary interests and conflicts taken in the meeting of the Committee of the Whole held this date as attached hereto and forming part of these meetings are hereby adopted and confirmed. And it's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favor?
No, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. It's been moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Michaud, that the bylaws listed on the agenda for third reading be taken as read a third time, be finally passed and numbered serially by the clerk. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And because I promised her I would do it at this session, it's been moved by Councillor Chapman that we now adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.